Hello and welcome to a gloriously sunny Nürburgring. Yes, you heard me correctly. Nürburgring plus glorious sunshine. It's a stunning morning here as we get ready for the first of our two races around the historic Nordschleife. Well, this is a weekend of legendary tracks, isn't it? Indianapolis 500, Monaco Grand Prix, and the World Touring Car Championship here at the Nordschleife. The fastest, longest, most demanding, most dangerous track. So dangerous that Formula One hasn't raced here since the mid-1970s when it nearly claimed the life of Niki Lauda. Well, good morning, everybody. Down in pit lane, we have Alexandre Le Guy, and up in the commentary position, Martin Haven with alongside me, the principal of Craft Bamboo Racing, Richard Coleman. Richard, when we woke up this morning in Adenau, down in our little hotel area, it was cold, grey and damp because the cloud is currently hanging in the bottom of the valley, but when we got up to the top of the hill here at the circuit, it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I think every day this week I've changed my wardrobe selection amount 5 times a day because one minute it's freezing cold and the heavens have opened, and the next minute it's glorious sunshine like we've got right now for, well, at least the first race, shall we say, because it changes very quickly.
It's been a little bit like Malaysia here, hasn't it? About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the heavens have suddenly opened. Well, Alex is on the grid with our opening race pole sitter, Honda's Thiago Monteiro.
If I can, I'm going to grab a quick word with pole man here at the green hell, Thiago. Any different strategy to normal?
Well, obviously, more than ever, the start will be very, very important. Also, we have a special first 2 corners, which are very slow. There's a lot of room, so there's many different possible strategies and lines, so we have to be very careful there.
Thank you.
So for the first time this weekend, an interview with the driver where his engineer didn't choose that particular moment to talk to him on the radio. And that's one of the interesting features here. We start off on the modern Grand Prix circuit. We don't use the full Mercedes arena because that's being used as the touring car paddock. So it's a little tyre stack, left-right or right-left wriggle the first corner. That really funnels them in, and that's actually perhaps as likely to cause an incident as any other place on this track. You've got 27 kilometres of Nordschleife following you, so there's plenty of opportunities for lots of incidents as well. Let's hear from Nicky Katzberg at Lada.
It was a lot warmer. Well, it's warmer than it's been for any other session. And remember, when we get warmer, usually we pick up some understeer. Yeah? Now that's on more usual circuits. Maybe on the big track, it won't happen like that, yeah?
A little warning for Nicky Katzberg. Track temperatures are higher. We actually had pretty much dry track running so far, but track temperatures are higher. It'll probably be around 27, 28 degrees of track temperature now and will continue to climb during the day. So his engineer warning him perhaps about a little bit more understeer than they're used to finding. But then there are so many long straights and high-speed sections, the tyres will hopefully get a good chance to cool down. Let's hear from the Queen of the Ring, Sabine Schmitz.
Quick word with the Queen of the Ring. Sabine, you have a brand new splitter. You had some issues yesterday. I feel like you haven't done many laps. Do you feel like you're still getting to grips with this car?
Yeah, I feel quite comfortable. The car is much easier to handle. The Munich team did a very good job changing the rear axle and everything from last year to this year. And so I feel very comfortable. I could have done yesterday 5 seconds quicker. I did a couple of mistakes because I wanted too much. So I went into understeer in a couple of corners. That cost a lot of time. So I will try it better now.
Great. Well, the women are rooting for you.
We all want to see her do well. Sabine is such a legendary figure here at the Nürburgring. Of course, she'll be racing in the 24-hour race along with Nicky Katzberg, along with Tom Coronel, and who's the fourth one? I forget. Rob Huff, of course. So they're all taking part in the what for the German fans is definitely the main event here, the 24 race. And of course, she is one of a couple of new Top Gear presenters who will be in the race this weekend. Chris Harris, who's another one of the Top Gear presenters, he is also racing the 24 race, although I think the hybrid car that he was due to drive may have been withdrawn after a crash in practice. However, he's down on the entry list still. And of course, Top Gear returns to your televisions in the UK on Sunday night. And for everybody else, all the fans across the globe, it'll be coming your way fairly soon. Well, we've got a big field of cars because on the grid we don't just have the World Touring Car Championship, we also have right in front of our commentary position, Richard, the European Touring Car Cup. So this is a little bit like the way they start the 24-hour race. They have 3 starting groups. So essentially, I mean, ours are all going to go in one go, but the European Touring Car Cup cars will be a little slower, so there's not much danger of them running into the back of the World Touring Car field.
Absolutely. The circuit's about sort of 5 or 6 times larger than the normal conventional circuits we go to, so there's absolutely no problem at all with having the ETCC racing at the same time.
And you can see there the view of the legendary carousel. And look at the way that the approach to the carousel, you climb up 5 or 6 stories in that run up the hill through the long right-hander and climb up to the carousel. You sort of get to there and you sort of pop over this brow and suddenly, oh, it's the carousel. You drop in and come out, and even if you're in the most humble road car, you suddenly feel like you're some sort of legendary hero because it's just one of those corners. The carousel is not replicated anywhere else. And the same deal, you know, when you drive around the road circuit at Spa and you go down through Eau Rouge and you think of all the drivers that have raced through there, you think it's just a little, you know, hairs on the back of your neck standing up moment. For these guys, of course, it's an awful lot more serious. There's so many corners on this track, so many opportunities to make a mistake. And as the experts will say, there are a few places where if you know the track well, you can really, really push hard and make up ground. One of the drivers who knows it pretty well is Fredrik Ekblom. He's raced here a few times. He's done 4 24-hour races and a few other VLN races. Volvo driver at the back of the grid, engine change after qualifying. In free practice, his engine went sick. It sounded really quite unhealthy. They managed to get it running again nicely for the qualifying session, but clearly it wasn't all good, and so it then needed to be changed. Rob Huff had a big crash in free practice 1. Not only was the front and the back of the car damaged, but the engine was wrecked as well. So he has had to take a grid penalty, dropped to the tail of the field. And because he was a little quicker than Ekblom, he starts just in front. But the two of them, both with penalties. And that's a bit harsh, you know, but there's a lot of corners here. Rob knows the track well, and so hopefully he'll be able to make some good progress. And you've got to think on a track this length, there is a good chance still of him finishing, maybe even as high as the top half dozen. In front of him, Ferenc Fittler, and he is in the still single Zengo Motorsport Honda. They were hoping to have a second car out here at the Nordschleife, but that has yet to come to pass. They do have another car, though, in the European Touring Car Cup. Overhead view of the Grand Prix circuit of the Nürburgring, and that is just the tip of the iceberg, literally as well as metaphorically, for our World Touring Car Championship drivers today in stunning sunny warm conditions on a beautifully bone dry track. Even after heavy overnight rain, it's all burned off and the track looks to be dry, certainly the Grand Prix circuit. Ready for our opening race, a 3-lap charge around De Grüne Hölle, the green hell of the Nürburgring. Martin Haven and Richard Coleman alongside me, and Richard, we're just catching up with your former driver Greg de Moustier in the paddock earlier. He was saying he's something like 20 seconds a lap quicker than he was when he first came here last year, because he's done a lot of work on the simulator, on computer games, and a couple of driving, or a driving day he came and did here. But you can be brave on the simulator. It's a bit different when you're actually in a car going 160 miles an hour.
Yeah, the difference is you can't hurt yourself on a simulator, whereas around here it's one of the few circuits where you really can still hurt yourself. And yeah, Greg illustrating that it's not easy, this track, and there's not many drivers that excel their first time here.
Yeah. Sabine Schmitz, of course, knows the track extraordinarily well, the German lady who is known as the Queen of the Ring. She was born just outside Adenau, within earshot of the track. Probably kept her awake at night many, many nights, dreaming of when she'd get a chance to race. And she has been racing here and driving various different cars here for many, many years. She'll be a major feature of the 24-hour race as well, and returns to Munich Motorsport for her second crack at World Touring Car Championship glory. She starts in 12th position, just ahead of her Ugo Valente, who had 2 puncture-induced crashes, one in free practice, one in qualifying yesterday. His car again back together, but the Lada boys, that's another sleepless night that they can chalk up this weekend. Just in front of him, teammate Gabriele Tarquini. Tarquini not really seeming to find an awful lot of comfort or pace at this track, and that was the case last year as well. I just don't think it gels too well with him.
You just get the impression, similar to Van Muller, that doesn't seem to enjoy it. Maybe that's slightly unfair, but you see these older drivers, I think they don't need this in their life sometimes. This circuit is very, very different, and like I said, it's something that you have to take a huge amount of risk. And I think with some of those sort of older drivers who've been here for a long time, it's very, very difficult to put yourself beyond that 100%, which sometimes you really do need around this circuit.
Well, we just saw Jose Maria Lopez. He's our DHL pole sitter for the main race, and with a stunning new lap record, 8 minutes 35 and change, almost 2 seconds inside the pole lap that he set last year, and comfortably the quickest car. Ivan Muller lines up second fastest. In fact, it was an 8 minutes 35.541 he set, the new track record, and the chances are that we'll actually have a new race lap record as well. Conditions are dry, might be a little damp in patches under the trees, but there's been a little change to the circuit at the Kittelbacher Höhe, which is quite early in the lap. Sabine Schmitz was telling us yesterday they've made some changes there, which means that it is now pretty much flat in anything, which it was a bit of a lift last year, so the track will get a little quicker. Ahead of the Citroens, Tom Coronel and then Norbert Michelitz. Coronel having a stunning run in qualifying in the Royal Motorsport Chevrolet to go third fastest. Quickest of the Sebastian Loeb Citroens was Tom Chilton, who's really hooked up this weekend. Unfortunately for him, that means he sort of starts in the middle of the top 10 in both races, but at least he's not towards the back of the field in either of the grids.
Just got to get through that first part of the lap without any damage. That's the secret to that.
Get off the Grand Prix loop and then out onto the Nordschleife, and then then it's all in your own hands. Nicky Hatzberg lines up fourth on the opening race grid. Ahead of him, Ted Björk. Björk has done a couple of races here as well, done a couple of VLNs, so he's got knowledge of the track, done a couple of the 24-hour races. So the Volvo drivers, despite not having done much European racing in the last few years, actually, surprisingly, of all the circuits World Touring Car is going to this season, this is the one that they both know best, which would seem to be diametrically opposite to what you might expect. Front row of the grid then, Mehdi Benani. Outside front row starter, already a race winner this season. We know without any question the Citroën C-Élysées are going to be very, very quick, and the 2 kilometre straight Dottinger Höhe that ends the lap will really play to their straight line top speed advantage, but you've got to be in a position to make use of it. Thiago Monteiro led here last year. He's our DHL pole sitter for the opening race, and he knows that the aerodynamics of the Honda Civic Type R are going to leave it like a sitting duck on Dottinger Höhe. He has got to be a long way clear before he gets onto Dottinger Höhe to stand any chance of completing even lap 1 in front. Gentlemen, start your engines, or in this case, gentlemen and ladies, start your engines. Cars are fired up and getting ready for round 9 of the FIA World Touring Car Championship. DHL pole sitter Thiago Monteiro leads the field ahead of Mehdi Benani, Ted Björk and Nicky Hatzberg. 4 manufacturers in the top 4. Tom Chilton, the best, second best of the Sebastian Loeb Racing Citroens on the grid, but the fastest in qualifying. And the top 10 rounded out by Pichito Lopez and Gabriele Tarquini. Rob Huff and Fredrik Ekblom at the back of the grid after engine changes following qualifying. they will have work to do. And further back, behind our touring car field, you can see the European Touring Car Cup cars all ready to go as well. So getting ready to set the field off. Remember what the format is here, whether we'll do a Grand Prix lap formation or whether we start the race immediately. Field rolls away on the green flag lap. This will be a quick trip around the Grand Prix loop and then back onto the grid for the start of the race proper. 3 laps of the Gesamte Strecke. That is the whole circuit, the Nordschleife of the Nürburgring, plus the Grand Prix circuit. And of all of the corners we get to, Richard Coleman, perhaps that funnel down into that first hard right, hard left combination has the most potential for disaster for all these touring car drivers.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those circuits where it makes a big funnel. It's very, very wide start-finish straight, and it really goes very, very narrow into there.
Well, let's see what Rob Huff thinks about the prospects for today's race.
Welcome aboard my Castrol Racing Honda Civic Type R, the most amazing and special track of the year. Some would say the most crazy. Green hell. Claimed quite a few victims this weekend, including myself, not once but twice. Tough track. Very difficult to overtake on. Only a 3-lapper, but when it's 25 k's a lap, 3 laps in a front-wheel drive touring car is more than enough. As always, getting all the settings on the steering wheel into place, changing them all the time. Start procedure very important. See, I'm having to start at the back with Ted as brother. Had an engine change due to the crash that I had. It cracked the engine, so unfortunately I had to replace that, which has meant starting at the back of the grid, which is going to be very entertaining indeed, I'm sure. We've had good pace all weekend, and obviously going to look to carry that through the 2 races. Second race starting P7. So hopefully pick some guys off at the start. See if we can find our way somewhere near the front and into the points. That's the important thing. Some points on the board. Have good fun, guys. I know I will. Cheers.
This is definitely one of those occasions where I'm very happy to be sat in a commentary booth looking at the action rather than trying to navigate a car around this track. Even in a road car, you realise quite what an eye-opening experience it must be for these race car drivers. And of course the Nordschleife, those of you who have access to video websites will be very well aware of just what potential disasters are there for any car. Never mind one driven with as much commitment as these guys will be mustering up.
This is the closest thing to sort of racing race cars down a country lane.
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest way to describe it. It's very much more rally stage than it is racetrack, and obviously there's so much history here. It's just one of those legendary circuits that if you came up with this idea now in the modern world, it would never happen. It's just one of those things that has been there since so many years, and the German body here have done such a fantastic job to make the circuit as safe as they can to allow us to have modern races.
We just saw a picture of Carlos Tavares, who is the boss of Peugeot Citroën, and he is here watching the action this weekend. Brand new cars for Peugeot 308 Cup cars in the European Touring Cup field. However, the main event, if Citroën don't finish first and second in both races here, something very weird will have happened. Cars on the grid, ready for the start of round 9 of the FIA World Touring Car Championship. Yves Maton's men, Ivan Muller and double world champion Jose Maria Lopez start 8th and 9th in the opening race field. However, if they're not first and second at the end of 3 laps of the Gunnar Höller, then something very weird and wonderful will have happened, because they have got 3 25-kilometre laps to get by the 7 cars in front of them. On the right-hand side of your screen, Thiago Monteiro, our DHL pole sitter. On the left, Mehdi Benani in the green, white and red of Morocco on his Sebastian Loeb Racing Citroën. So it's Honda, Citroën, Volvo, Lada, the first 4 cars on the grid. We are ready to go down into the first corner on the Grand Prix circuit. Away we go. Lights change very quickly. Good start from Norbert Michaelis and from Tom Chilton. Ted Björk not quickly away enough. Chilton comes from row 3. Coronel very quick in qualifying, tucks it behind him in 5th. It's Montero that takes the lead, and around the outside comes the red train. Muller in front of Lopez, and then they block the inside at the second corner. That was really canny racing by both Citroën drivers, and Muller already alongside. And he's just trying to ease his way past Chilton. He'll do it into the left, and here goes Lopez as well. And already one corner in, the Citroëns are up to 4th and 5th. And look at Ted Björk trying to get around the outside of Mehdi Banani. And the race leader, Thiago Montero, must head for the hills as if the devil is behind him, because towards the end of this lap, when we get to Dossingerhöhe, 23 kilometres time, the 2 red Citroëns are going to tow up behind him and blow him away on top speed alone.
Chilton was way too kind to Ivan Muller into turn 2 there, and Ivan showed no quarter when we got to the next turn and hung Chilton out to dry, and Lopez got straight up the inside of him there.
Well, Tom has got different fish to fry, of course. Tom's rival is Mehdi Banani. They're looking at World Touring Car Trophy victories and World Touring Car Trophy points for the independent drivers, as Kevin Richard leads the European Touring Car Cup. And so Chilton's got to preserve his car. It's very easy to have an accident now and not even make it onto the Nordschleife, but you're not going to get any points for that. He's got to let them get to Banani, get by Banani, and then Chilton's got to try and tow up behind Mehdi and get into the lead for the independents. But as you say, he did sort of rather open the door to the 2 factory Citroëns, for which Thiago Montero and the Honda team will not thank him. Turning left onto the Grand Prix loop. First left-hander, one of the critical elements on the entire lap, because it sets you up nicely for the beginning of the Hatzenbach, which is a very fast-flowing section, and if you don't have speed there, then that kind of haunts you all the way up to Kittelbacher Höhe. And as you can see immediately, the diametric opposite. This is the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s Grand Prix circuit. Look what the modern Grand Prix circuit looked like in comparison. Wide open and autobahn. This is the opposite.
Very difficult to overtake through this section, so all the drivers are trying to make sure that they're as close to the car in front as possible when the next opportunity comes around.
Flying up through the Kittelbacher Höhe, and then up to the first famous jump. It's been planed a little, Flugplatz. This used to be a very big takeoff point in the olden days. It's had the top surface planed down a little bit, but again, running here close to top speed.
La Volvo devant moi fume comme s'il allait faire le moteur, il va y avoir de l'huile bientôt.
Okay, so Ivan, woo, something just flew off one of the cars in front. Ivan complaining about temperature, maybe it was. Ivan complaining about temperature of the engine. Down to Arenberg, and Ivan got in late into Arenberg. He'll have lost a little bit of ground to Ted Björk. So is it Björk's Volvo that's lost a side window, or Banani's Citroën? Don't think it came off Montero's car. I think it was out of the 2nd or 3rd place car.
Yeah, I agree.
Might just be a little sort of quarter light. But again, now look how much Muller is closing up behind the blue Volvo. Great helicopter shot as they sweep around, heading down through Adenauer Forest.
Like threading the eye of a needle at this stage of the circuit. Very tight, twisty, but still pretty fast.
And the deal here is you're unlikely to just get a clean pass, but you can force a mistake out of the car in front. And it's looking a lot sunnier at Adenauer than it was when we drove up from our hotel this morning. The sun has definitely burned away a lot of the cloud. Really quick down the hill here, over the bridge at Adenauer.
Ted Björk's looking very racy, but I'm not sure he's got the straight line speed for later on in the lap to make the pass.
Well, and that's the drama, isn't it? The Citroën C-Élysée certainly has a lot of top speed. We saw that particularly when we're in France on the Grand Prix circuit at Paul Ricard. They could just lift up their skirts and really gallop away into the distance.
Mehdi Banani's not looked that comfortable this weekend, probably the first weekend of the season where his teammate Tom Chilton has very much had the legs on him pace-wise, so I think Banani's really already trying to just hang on.
Again, still dropping down into the valley, and then through from Verstein we start a big climb up from Exmüller, Breitscheid. Phenomenal view from the helicopter showing you just where on the long shots, where the name the Green Hell came from, coined by Jackie Stewart back in the 1960s. This place is so verdant and lush, but when the rain sets in, oh my goodness.
Absolutely, and although it looks very, very sunny now, we are forecast a lot of rain later on today.
Long, fast section towards Bergwerk. And helicopter breaking up the onboard camera in the trees, losing the shot there. So here's a look at the start then. Bit of a mixed getaway, very slow away. Was that Gabriele Tarquini? No, it wasn't. It was Katzberg, very slow away in the Lada. And that's a major issue for him. I wonder if he didn't quite have the start mapping correct. And watch the two red Citroens. That was a great move. Around the outside, should have left them hung out to dry, but immediately, in fact, Tom actually touched Ivan Muller. He wasn't looking for Ivan Muller in the first corner, made contact with him, and that's possibly why he let him go through. Little ripples of applause there from the bigwigs at Peugeot Citroën, on board with Tom Coronel. Good start from him. He goes outside as well.
Very good start. Chevrolet never the easiest car to get off the line.
But look to the left. Hello, there's Muller. Oh, hello, there's Lopez as well. The door's open, and neither of the Toms can shut them. Can shut the door, and through go the two factory Citroens. Lopez, look at the contact with Tom Chilton.
Yeah, they'll both get away with that, but could have been so much worse.
Well, if that was a Seat, they'd have both had broken suspension arms, wouldn't they? On board with Huffy. Ferenc Fischer in front, trying to find a gap. Sabine Schmitz making a bit of elbow room for herself. Oh, and this is just a moment or two ago. Did we see that earlier? That's Ekblom inside de Moustier. And so that, in fact, is just as they're going into the Hatzenbach, I think. So that's early on the Grand Prix loop. So with the leaders now, we have come past the carousel, and this is now the section Wipperman through Brunchen and Flansgarten. Ivan Muller starting to make a pass around the outside of Mehdi Benani, and that is for third place. The Moroccan is struggling, the car weaving all over the place as he drops down into the dip before Brunchen. Muller gets through. We missed the Volvo moving up to second place. Here's where it happens. Benani gets a little wide, and that, I think, is the exit. I'm not quite sure. That is the exit of Wipperman, I think.
Benani just got on the wrong line there, lost all traction on the exit of the corner, and that was enough to let Ted Bjork straight round the outside of him into the next corner.
So now we're towards the end of the lap. Look how high we are compared to the low point on the valley, and here comes Chilton. He's paying no respect. Now there is the mini carousel, so this is Schwalbenschwanz right towards the end of the lap. Chilton goes by, Coronel goes by, Benani in all sorts of trouble. Through goes the Honda, and that'll be Rob Huff going, oh, that'll be Norbert Michelisz going by him, won't it? It is Norby's gone by him. And the next Lada up will be Gabriele Tarquini.
I'm not sure if Benani had a problem there, but I just think he just got so out of rhythm from being offline in all those turns, and that's it, just one after another. You just lose so much momentum if you're not on that one line through that section.
So here we go, down the 2 kilometre straight. That is the Dottinger Höhe, and Ivan Muller is right in the slipstream of Ted Björk. Björk moves from one side of the road to the other for the quick left at the Antonios Brücke, but Muller is right there, ready to pounce. This left-right sweep that ends the lap.
This is very much already looking like Ivan's race as we come towards the end of the first loop round.
Except if he's in front of Jose Maria Lopez onto Dottinger Höhe for the final time, that's like being in front at Monza in the last lap of a slipstreamer. Montero leads lap 1 from Ted Björk, but Muller and Lopez are ominously close. And Chilton, I'm not counting out an all-Citroën podium here. Michelisz up to 5th position. Benani down to 7th. Ugo Valente is right behind him. Then Rob Huff up to 9th from 15th on the grid. 16th on the grid. So Huffy has made really good progress. And all his experience of 24-hour racing and VLN racing really has paid off.
Although not a lot has gone well for Rob this weekend at all. He's really struggled with various incidents, accidents, protests regarding previous races, all kinds of things going on for him this weekend.
Well, Nicky Katzberg in the Lada down in 14th place, not going at all well for him. Another acknowledged Nordschleife expert. He's just in front of Sabine Schmitz, and Sabine was just 1900ths of a second behind the larder as they came across the line. But Tom Chilton having a really excellent race weekend here in that red, white and blue Sebastian Loeb racing Citroen.
That's why it's a shame for Tom that he sort of lost out in that first two corners, because I think if he'd been the car behind the Volvo, he very well could have gone to the lead of this race.
Yeah, but don't forget, he's fifth at the moment with two Citroens to tow him along. Here is that Rob behind? No, hang on, that's...
Rob behind Valente.
Yeah, behind Hugo Valente on the Grand Prix circuit. The contrast is quite hard to make out from the onboard camera of Huff's car exactly who was in front of him there. Out left onto the Hatzenbach they come. And in Valente's mirrors, that's a great view of what you see behind. Slightly sick-making, but a great view all the same. Little shot of Rob Huff's car, and right behind him is Gabriele Tarquini. Don't think Rob will be worrying about Gabriele. He's already got by him, and Gabriele hasn't shown the pace to challenge. Ted Bjerk's in the pits. So he has come round the Grand Prix loop and then cut in through the back.
I think it's oil pressure's all running. Oil pressure's all running.
Well, it is pouring out smoke. John Philippi is in the pits as well. So Ted Bjerk is out of second place, and that means now that Thiago Montero leads, and Ivan Muller is already up to second, and Pachito Lopez is up to third, and Tom Chilton is up to fourth.
Real shame for the Volvo team, but they've had quite a lot of unreliability regarding the engine, and this circuit at 25 kilometres long is 63% full throttle. So if there's going to have any engine issues, they are going to be exposed here.
Yeah, and the full throttle sectors here are not accelerative full throttle so much as really sitting there going very, very quickly indeed. The bonus for the car is that when you are at that high speed, you get a lot of really good cooling, and for brakes and tyres there's a lot of hard work, but there's a lot of really good cooling elements as well. You know, this isn't working the tyres hard, it's allowing them respite. It's not working the brakes hard, it's allowing them respite. It allows the cooling system a bit of respite. The problem for Jose Maria Lopez is being in Ivan's turbulent wash. His engine temperatures will gradually start to climb.
Yeah, though we've seen bulletproof reliability from Citroen on the engine side, but he's really on Ivan's tail now.
Well, he needs to be, because those two together, when they get on the faster sections, will both be quicker than Thiago Montero can be on his own. So their top speed combined will be higher than Thiago's, and if they work together, as they inevitably must do, then they will slipstream up behind him, little by little, straight by straight.
So Thiago knows that. He knows that his only chance of winning this race is making sure he's got enough of a gap before he gets on the long straights towards the end of the lap.
It was like China last year, isn't it? Run away and hide and just pray that somebody somehow holds off the Citroens.
Just have to take big risks to make sure that that gap is where it needs to be.
The bonus for Thiago is that the quicker of the two Citroen drivers is stuck behind the slower of the two Citroen drivers, and so Muller is dictating their pace, not Lopez. Thiago Montero leading here as we get to Adenauer Forest for the second time. Over the bridge at Adenauer and starting the big, big climb. This is over 300-metre vertical climb here. And in some places it feels like a vertical climb. I can't imagine what cycling around the Nordschleife must be like. They have a bicycle race here as well, which must be as punishing almost as any stage on a Grand Tour. And when you're watching the helicopter shot, you can barely see the inclination there. That rear camera shot shows you just how steep this is. This is like coming out of Eau Rouge, but for a mile and a half. It's longer and steeper than the Kemmel Straight by a big margin, and we are still climbing.
Even then, the television pictures don't do it justice. It is so steep, as you say, Martin. And again, this is all putting a huge amount of load on the engine.
Phenomenal climb all the way up the hill. And look how much closer now Ivan is to Thiago Montero. He's halved the distance between the two of them. It was only a second at the beginning or at the end of the first lap as they came past our commentary position, and Thiago then managed to open up the better part of another half second, maybe more than that, on the Grand Prix loop alone. But now as they come and drop into the 45-mile-an-hour carousel, The two Sichens are a lot closer. That is probably less than 3/4 of a second. That's probably only at about 6/10 of a second.
Chilton doing very well to hold on the back of those factory cars as well.
And Coronel as well. And they're all slipstreaming along in this little group of four. And the closer they get to the two red and black factory cars, the faster they will all go. And again, Montero is on his own. And like cycle racing, he's on his own, he's doing all the work. Whereas that little group behind, the chasing pack, they're helping each other effectively.
Big pressure for Honda as well. They kind of need a result. Very difficult weekend for them with cars in the wall and various things going wrong. A lot of sleepless nights, literally, where the guys didn't go back to the hotel, and they're in a dispute with the rule makers. So they've got an upcoming court case in the next couple of months regarding that. So this win would mean a lot to them right now.
Massive fan campgrounds you'll see either side of the track. Well, particularly to drivers left here as we fly around through the Brunchen-Flansgarten section. One of the most picturesque, one of the most demanding, one of the most evocative of racing sections. Sabine Schmidt's up behind Gregoire de Moustier now. So she's picked off Nicky Katzberg and Frederick Ekblom. There's Katzberg going around de Moustier, so in fact she hasn't got by Katzberg, but Katzberg has got by the Belgian. And Greg, although he's an awful lot more confident in the circuit than he was last year, certainly doesn't have anything like the confidence aboard that Sabina does. She'll know exactly where she can have a lunge at him. Dropping down into the carousel. Listen to how she picks up the throttle. Oh, a little late there, trying to be cautious, trying to avoid wheel spin, and if you pop out there, you can fly off into the barriers very easily. She got a long side.
Very narrow to overtake here without taking some big risks.
Thiago Montero again has used the chassis of the Honda to try and escape through Schwalbenschwanz, but now we're on Döttinger. And if Lopez were in front, I think the Sichens would be closer. But Ivan is not going to allow him to get through. If he does, then he knows that Lopez is going to win the race. But this is Lopez perhaps rehearsing what they're going to do on the final lap. Because if Ivan is still in front, Lopez is going to win the race. Right now, though, are they going to get to Thiago before they get on the brakes?
It's
they can't go either side. That is very close indeed. And Muller just keeps his nose in front. Muller chose the line of least defence. And Jose Maria Lopez almost threw it up the inside as they got to the Tiergarten, but decided against it. Thiago leads at the end of lap 2. But the gap that was a second is down to 7/10.
For Ivan, it's slightly, you don't have to outswim the shark, just the guy you're swimming with.
Look how close now we are. Lopez having a lunge down into the first turn, gets it wrong, but that brings Chilton into play. Tom looking to the inside of the world champion, and Tom Coronel is right there as well. Benani's not in the frame. Behind Mehdi Benani is
Chilton's right alongside Lopez.
Oh, and Lopez is not going to allow him any ground that he doesn't have to. Lopez again looks to the inside of the Dunlop hairpin. Chilton just with the overlap. The red, white and blue car just in front, and Ivan is now latched in. He's got the homing beacon on the back of the Honda. Lopez up the inside.
He had to overtake him there. He can't go on to the Nordschleife behind Tom.
Ooh.
But even then, I think that sequence of corners have probably just cost Lopez this race.
Well, now, of course, what's going to happen is that Muller is going to get up behind the Honda, and that will slow Muller down. Whereas behind, Lopez has got two drafting partners. They may want to get by him. They're not going to get by him. But he is now free to go at the speed we know he can produce, which is quicker than Ivan.
I still think he's probably now left himself slightly too much work to do. We'll see. But Lopez will have to take some huge risks to get onto the back of Ivan again. I think the gap is now just slightly too big.
Oh, I don't know. That can't be much more than a second. Ivan is probably still 6/10 behind Thiago. And Lopez is really going pushing for it. Lopez wants to win this, knows he can, knows he should. Do you know, and that is the real sign of the champion, isn't it? He's not going to settle for third until they pass the checkered flag, and he can't get by Ivan.
It'll have to be an absolute qualifying run now for Lopez to have any chance of getting on the back of Ivan.
Well, don't forget, he will be on as low fuel now as when he set that qualifying lap, So there is an 8-minute 35 lap in the car, and if Lopez produces that, he will win this race, and he is all over the curbs. Fastest race lap so far from Tom Chilton, 8 minutes 47.5, and the previous race lap record 8:40.68 set last year by Jose Maria Lopez. Lopez in third, Chilton fourth, already half a second and more behind Lopez. Lopez is bridging the gap between the pursuing trio and Ivan Muller and Thiago Monteiro. He's going to be there before we get to Adenau. He's going to be back with Ivan.
Absolutely flying. He's just at the fastest second sector of anybody in this race.
Huffy flashing the headlights at Mehdi Banani. Banani has recovered his composure well, and off's gone Coronel. A rare mistake for Tom. Is that another puncture?
Such a shame.
Yes, right front puncture for Coronel. Well, he's had such a good weekend here. And that is his third high-speed puncture of the weekend. There's been a couple for Ugo Valente as well. It is a really high-stress track on the tyres, and that means that the battle now between Banani and Huff is for 6th position. Huff reminding you from 16th on the grid, Banani from 2nd. And that's what knowledge and experience gives you. And here comes the Honda, and he's down the inside, and he just levered Banani offline enough.
Great move.
Didn't touch him, no contact, but Banani couldn't get the line he wanted, couldn't get tucked in. And there he went. And let's have a look at, oh, Chilton having a massive moment. And Coronel, tyre let go. Did he say left front? Looked to me like, well, the right front was certainly damaged when we picked it up.
Yeah, it's
Looked
quite a lot
like
of damage there. That's probably going to put him out of race 2 as well.
Yeah, may well do.
Which is
the other thing, of course, is they've got to get the car back. And although they're towing it behind the barriers, he's on the inside of the circuit there. And the service roads, well, they're good. I'm not sure how quickly it'll be back to the team.
Of course, he was down to start third in the next race as well, Martin, so that's huge disappointment.
And of course, he was already second in the WTCC trophy behind Tom Chilton, was certainly hoping to challenge him or at least finish second behind him. And as you say, start really strongly on the race, on the grid for the main race, behind the factory Citroens and ahead of all his other points rivals. So very, very tough break for Tommy Coronel.
Huge knock-on for these small independent teams with their sponsors and prize money and whatever else. It's just such a shame for Tom.
Fastest lap of the race from Thiago Monteiro last time round, 8:48.8. Ivan Muller managed an 8:48.5, only 3/10
Ivan,
quicker.
tire sur les pneus, faut essayer de réduire le gap, tu es plus proche, un début.
Oh, and who's
Montero's
that?
gone off. They've all gone off.
That's a huge crash. Through goes Chilton. Was that Muller? It was Muller and Monteiro, so that means that Lopez is our race leader. Muller and Monteiro. Montero's... Now, Ivan was very calm on the radio. Was that message just before the incident happened? So Lopez must be our race leader, unless his car is somewhere there. Somebody, hopefully the director will find it. Here's Muller. Monteiro has a moment, he's on the grass. Muller, he's lost a wheel. And Muller can't avoid him.
It's a tyre carcass, I think.
It's a tyre carcass. So there is Muller with Lopez right behind. Monteiro had a big impact. Maybe it was the entire wheel that came off then. That was a huge shunt. Muller couldn't avoid him. Muller went for the narrowing gap, and Monteiro, again, Teflon coated, has somehow avoided the plane crash. So is Monteiro okay? He's very dazed. That was a huge shunt. That was bigger than Huffy's.
Yeah, just trying to work out if that's frustration or injury.
Well, winded, definitely. And Ivan runs across to see if he's okay.
Yeah, he doesn't...
From the far side of the track. Ivan had already beetled across behind the barriers. Saw Thiago get out of the wrecked car eventually.
Thiago and Ivan are big friends off track as well.
But that's the kind of guy Ivan is anyway. If that had been John Philippi, he would have run over to check that he was okay. So Jose Maria Lopez leads, and Tom Chilton in second. Well, my prediction of a Citroen 1-2 was not going to be these two first and second. It was going to be Pechito and Ivan, with Tom in third.
Lopez's car's moving around quite a lot.
Yes.
I wonder if he picked up any damage when he went through that Montero-Muller accident.
Well, if he had, surely Chilton would have got by him by now. I think Montero's car's, Lopez's car's just moving around because Lopez's car moves around when he's ragging it, and he is ragging it. They were dropping there into the mini carousel, and Thiago is on the ground. Medical crews will be with him very, very quickly. And onto the Dottinger for the final time come the Citroen 1-2, Lopez and Chilton. And this should put Norby in third. I think he is. Is that Norby third and Rob in fourth? Rob is in fourth place from 16th on the grid. Never say never. And for Tom Chilton as well, watch Lopez's car like a hawk. Any sign of a puff of smoke, although the Citroens appear to have been very kind in their tyres. And Chilton is going to close up right behind him. Will Chilton challenge for the win? Will he be able to get by Lopez even if he does? Third for Norby, fourth for Huff, fifth for Bonani, sixth for Valente, seventh for Tarquini at the moment. But it'll be Pechito that comes out of Tiergarten for the final time, narrowly in front of Chilton. And Chilton now will be ruining the fact that Lopez got by him. But it is victory for Lopez, a Citroen 1-2.
Yeah, robbed of the grandstand finish that we all deserved there, but let's just hope that Thiago Montero is okay.
And Frederick Ekblom from the back of the grid, 0.09 of a second behind Gabriele Tarquini from 7th. So Ekblom really made a race of that, and so too did Rob Huff. Well, that's very good to see that Thiago is up. Clearly he was winded, and that's really knocked the wind out of his sails. I think both of those drivers will be pretty glad that they don't have to go back and contemplate race 2. Well, watch what happens here. We're in top gear, flat out, and the car just turns into the barriers, and that is a carbon copy of Rob's accident, and somehow Lopez squeezed around the outside.
I don't understand where Lopez ended up.
He goes right here, look, he has a big moment, goes right, and Ivan is then caught behind Thiago's car, which then drags it off into the barriers. Lopez got through around the outside of both of them.
Very nearly ended up, that's a huge shunt.
That is a huge, huge shunt. And then, bammo, he gets collected by Ivan. Not hard, it has to be said, but somehow Pechito went around the outside on the grass around that accident. Well, that's not something that, you know, that's an instinctive flinch, and that could have gone as horribly wrong for Lopez and right for Ivan as actually happened the other way round. But somehow Lopez ends up winning yet again. Well, that is Jose Maria Lopez's 4th win of the season. Pechito did not win in Morocco, and that's the first race weekend that he has not had a victory. He is back in winner's circle. This is the first time he's won the opening race of the season as well, and it was always going to be the best opportunity, Richard. This track just plays such a trump card for the Citroens with this 2-kilometre straight at the end of the lap. It was,
yeah, and it's not just that, so much of the lap is full throttle.
Yes.
If you have any straight line speed advantage, it's going to work for you here. But have to say that Lopez has put some stunning laps, and his qualifying lap yesterday was one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, his fastest race lap, 8:47.7. The lap record from last year, 8:40.6. So 7 seconds off what we know he could produce last season. I don't think he's got any slower. I'm damn sure the Citroen's no worse than it was last year. Conditions are perfect for our main race, where he starts on pole. I'm certain there will be no Ivan Muller alongside. There'll be no Tom Coronel in 3rd. So that means Norbert Michelitz will start in 2nd. Tom Chilton will be 3rd. Nicky Katzberg's car has survived. He'll be fourth. Ted Björk is unlikely to take up his grid spot either, I think. Cars heading back into Parc Fermé. There is the enormous paddock that supports the Nürburgring 24 Hours. And on the left of your picture, there's the World Touring Car paddock as well. Huge number of cars here this weekend. Richard Coleman, massive drama, robbed us of what could have been an absolute grandstand finish. And you know what? The way he was driving, Thiago Monteiro might just have won it, because the battle might have been Lopez trying to get by Muller rather than the two Citroens trying to get by Monteiro.
I think any car in the top three there had a good chance of victory, and it's a shame we didn't get to see how it panned out. But I have to say there's been far too many punctures this weekend. I have to say, you know, some of the drivers have been very outspoken about it, and I really can't blame them. In this day and age with the control tyre, there's no reason why we shouldn't have a tyre that can do the job even on the most demanding of circuits.
Well, it is very difficult. You know, the tyre has been designed to work with these cars in extremes of temperature and pressure, but over a 2.5 mile lap on pretty much any circuit or less. Whereas when you come to here, the constant, supremely high loadings in some of the corners, this is a very, very different racetrack. So
it is, but we have seen similar failures at a couple of other circuits we've gone to, and you know, I think we're at the stage that we really need to. The championship needs to look at doing something about it, because I think, you know, someone's going to get hurt if things carry on.
Well, I think we've got a few bruised bodies in the paddock. Mehdi Benani talking to his engineer. And that was pretty hot work, I think. It's a bright, sunny day. It's warm outside as well. You know, we've got up with a full wet setting. We've gone full dry setting, Richard, and we may pay for that later when the rain comes in and the clouds are building. But, yeah,
weather here
he looks like that
changes
was
so
hard
quickly.
work.
Yeah, absolutely. And although it is a warm day, it's also a circuit where the driver gets very little respite.
Yeah.
Just constant corners, constantly thinking, mentally exhausting. And it's definitely one of the most demanding tracks from that perspective.
It's like downhill mountain bike racing, jumping, bumping, bouncing from you know, crest to crest, and so many blind brows here. It's so mentally exhausting as well. Really, really hard work on the driver, mentally as well as physically. And then, you know, the clatters into the barriers are very bruising as well. So Tom Coronel, pretty certain we're going to write him off from race 2. Ivan Muller and Thiago Monteiro as well. Ted Björk's engine, will that be working? Don't know. I'm sure the team have been working on it during the race. Of course, they'll now have to either take it out of Parc Fermé and start him at the back, or be able to fix it. And John Philippi, well, not sure what ailed his car, but it is still there on pit row. So Fredrik Ekblom's car is there. Ted Björk's not. Does that mean it's back in the garage?
Yeah, maybe if they know that it's terminal, they've got the car out the pit lane already. So it looks like we could even be down to 12 starters for race 2. So anybody has got a good chance of points in the second race.
Yep, definitely. And penalties for Ekblom and Huff won't apply, so they'll be able to take up spots on the grid that they would otherwise have earned. And those, of course, will be boosted because of Ivan Muller's car not being there, Tom Coronel's car not being there. So from 16th on the race 1 grid, Rob Huff will probably start in 6th position, no worse, for the race 2 grid. Well, down into our victory circle finally comes Jose Maria Lopez. Has he done a victory lap all the way around the Nordschleife? That seems to have been a very long time to get just around the Grand Prix, Luke.
Yeah, he was up on the weighbridge just at the other end of the pit lane, just having some initial technical checks. Obviously.
Thought he might have done a Valentino Rossi and stopped at a Portaloo to come out dressed as Superman or something.
They can't do many technical checks between races, but they tend to try and check the ride height and a few things like that of the winning car.
Just as well we're not waiting on live television to talk to the winner then.
Yeah.
Oh dear, we are. Asking whether he should turn the main switch off or not, leave the ignition on, or leave the power in the car on at any rate.
At the moment, the team aren't allowed to touch the car because it's in Parc Fermé, so there's normally some final instructions to the driver.
Well, a 50% finishing rate for the factory Citroens, but the one that did finish claim victory. Carlos Tavares, I'm sure, will be concerned for Ivan Muller. Ivan looked okay, actually. Ivan didn't have a big hit, but I think the Total Citroën Racing team are down to one car for our main race. However, that one car will start on pole. And again, it'll be a freak set of circumstances that will see Pachito not make a double race weekend victory out of this.
Yeah, he's definitely in the pound seats now. His main rival, Ivan Muller, looks like he won't take a start from that accident in race 1.
Of course, Ivan's not even his main points rival. Tiago Monteiro is, and so a 0 in the scoring column for Tiago. His third of the season, in fact, will be a body blow to his championship challenge. Rob Huff, third in the standings, will close a little on Tiago because he scored points for 4th position. Norbert Michelis, 4th in the championship, will close up again because he scores points for 3rd place. Mehdi Benani will also ease away from Ivan Muller, and Ivan gets a big fat 0 for the 4th time. Now, my rule of thumb is 4 zeros, you can never be champion.
Yeah, I mean, it varies year to year, but invariably, you're probably right. You need to take an average of probably sort of 30 points from every weekend to have any chance.
Well, the cars, as you say, in Parc Fermé, teams not allowed to touch them yet. And then there will be a 15-minute period in which they can refuel and then repair the cars. And that tends to mean making sure there's enough oil in it for race 2. Brake changes if brake changes are needed. Well, Alex Legui is down with our race winner. Let's hear from Pachito Lopez.
Pachito Lopez wins here at the Green Hell, and my goodness me, Green Hell is exactly what it was just then. What went through your head when you saw Tiago and Muller off in front of you?
Yeah, it's an accident. I think Tiago had a problem with the tire. He went just straight. It was scary. That's why I'm very quiet on the celebrations. I don't like to show it when the others have a problem. I won today because the other two had a problem. Otherwise, it was going to be very exciting in the long straight.
You were really, really pushing hard. I mean, it did look like potentially you could have caught Tiago.
Yeah, I think, today, in fact, my teammate was slowing me a little bit because, in fact, I was much quicker, but I couldn't pass him in Nordschleife. And then in the straight, we both were catching the slipstream, so we had exactly the same speed. So I couldn't pass him, and I couldn't pass Monteiro. So it's a bit of a situation you always have here in the Nordschleife, especially in the second race. But then, yes, I think, lucky was in my favor, but I also remember last year when Mash crashed outside on the high speed, he went inside after. So the only thing at the moment, it was only milliseconds. When I saw Tiago hitting the axle wall, I say I have to go outside. He will go inside. So yeah, it was millimeters. I go through, and it's a fantastic win. It's very good for the championship. But I'm very sorry for Tiago and Ivan. They were doing a fantastic job.
Great reflexes. Ready for the main race?
Yeah, ready. Yeah, now cool down, check a bit the car, and let's see what happens. Thank you.
Well, again, the mark of a champion, it's that instinctive. It could have gone horribly wrong for him as well as for Ivan. As he said, millimeters. Thiago's car could have just clipped the back of him, and he could have been tossed into a spin in the barriers. We could have had cars everywhere. Tom Chilton might have ended up winning it. If he hadn't got by Tom Chilton, it probably would have got Pachito in that accident as well. So, it's those lucky breaks. It's not how quick you are. It's not how good you are. Those are taken as read when you're, at this level. You're good enough. But it's those tiny little fractions of good fortune that will decide who's champion. And Pachito, again, a little bit of luck going his way. Didn't go Ivan's way. And that will make a big difference. So a Citroën C-Élysée 1-2. Jose Maria Lopez ahead of Tom Chilton. Norbert Michelis, Rob Huff, 3rd and 4th for the factory Honda team. Mehdi Benani, the 2nd of the Yokohama, World Touring Car Trophy privateers. He's in 5th in his Citroën. And then Lada's Ugo Valente, Gabriele Tarquini, 7th and 8th, 6th and 7th ahead of Fredrik Ekblom in the Volvo. But a high carnage rate. Ted Björk, will we see him? Not sure. John Philippi car looks okay. Will he be out? Not sure. Montero, Muller, Coronel, pretty much guaranteed we're not going to see them, I'm afraid, on our main race grid. So we should be down to, well, we could have 14, but, say Richard, ostensibly, potentially just a dozen. Ambulance whizzes by us down the main straight, and with the lights on, you've got to think Thiago Montero is in that, just going for checkups at the infield medical centre. Pit lane alarm sounds. Now, is that for the beginning of repair time? No, nobody's touching cars yet. Well, let's catch up with Alessandro Mariani at Yas Honda. Alex is with him. Maybe he's got a little news on Thiago Montero.
Alessandro, I just saw you chatting to Pachito, presumably trying to find out what happened from his opinion. What did he say?
He said that he went straight in a strange way as a puncher, but as Thiago told immediately by the radio. Now we have to check the tires and to be sure that there are the safety conditions to race.
And do you think this is a problem for all three cars? Because we saw the similar thing with Rob.
It's something that happened during the practice and the qualifying, so we needed to be sure. It's a dangerous place.
And Thiago, is he okay? Have you heard from him?
He was okay, but I don't know the real situation because after the shunt you need to wait for 1 day to be sure to be right.
Thank you.
Well, we just saw the ambulance going by, didn't we? And I'm sure Thiago was there. The medical centre here is very, very good. And Gabriele Tarquini having a quick chat with Dario Desposito and with Alessandro Mariani. And you see now that, you know, when there's all these failures, you then, you know, as the team management, and you know this, if you're in this position and you've got two cars left to go out, one's already had a puncture, a second one's now had a puncture.
This isn't just a Honda thing. This is affecting everyone on the grid.
Yeah.
And you know, you see the speed of this accident, and this is quite a fortunate place to go off in some ways. Although it was high speed, there's worse places to go off, and it's a little bit like boxers or rugby players or whatever else. Of course, everybody wants to play, everybody wants to drive, and that's where really it's the organisers and the rule makers that need to come in and make sure that that choice is taken away from you. You know, drivers will always drive. Grand Prix drivers in the 70s went around here in Formula One cars with very little safety. So I have to say, it is pretty marginal right now. I mean, we must have seen probably nearly 10 punctures this weekend. Yeah. The Citroens have probably been relatively unaffected, but certainly on Lada, Chevrolet, and Honda.
Well, a bruising and high-speed opening race here at the Nordschleife. So lots going on in our opening race here at the Nürburgring. Gabriele Tarquini came to a 7th place finish. Alex Leguigui is down there with him. I wonder what his thoughts are on what was quite a damaging race.
I just witnessed a very animated discussion there, and I don't think it's just because you're both Italian. What were you talking about?
We spoke about the situation. I mean, the situation to race here is not very good. Last year nothing happened, but this year something changed and we have problem with the tires. I mean, it's random. It's happened to any manufacturers. It's not one manufacturer. So we try to speak with Yokohama to solve the problem, but the problem is not solved. I mean, everybody is conscious that this is a really different track, but probably we need special tires to race here. I mean,
there was some chat yesterday in response to this saying that possibly the drivers are being too aggressive. I assume you would negate that.
This is a stupid answer, because if you stay on the track and you must be as fast as possible, because we race 3 laps race, is not a 24-hour race. Our race is very short. You must be as fast as possible. But on Tuesday we had 7 tires exploded. On Friday we had 4 or 5. Today we had 2, and this is not really good. It's not really safe. I mean, I was in the back of the pack, and I was conscious about the problem. I was slowing down on Nordscheife. I was racing like a taxi driver, but this is not the spirit of the WTCC.
And then obviously when you hear or see, I'm not sure how close you were to him, but your old teammate must be a little bit scary. So then what's your thoughts and your feelings ahead of the main race? How will you attack this?
No, I try to be very conservative on the Nordschleife, but we don't know the reason. I mean, it can be the compression, can be the braking, can be the high-speed corner, can be the straight, very long. We don't know. We don't have any answer. So I will be more conservative than normal, but I don't know if I'm trying the best to avoid this problem.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it's a difficult situation, you know. Gabriele doesn't want to just say to the team, okay, I'm not going to do it. But on the other hand, he's seen enough rubbish in his life that he doesn't want to be putting himself in the barriers and into hospital. And so, wisely, sensibly, you know, we say this all the time about this track, like Le Mans, first thing you've got to do is get round it in one piece. And that's not the easiest job in the world, even for really experienced racing drivers. So that little margin of safety will probably serve him very well indeed. Well, repair time has started in the pit lane. Were they doing a brake change on Jose Maria Lopez's car? Looked as though they might have been. Bit of work going on under the bonnet of John Phillippe's machine as well. And certainly no time to repair any of the damage for Thiago Monteiro of Armour or Tom Coronel's cars, and they're not back in the paddock anyway, so they are absolutely not going to make the grid. So we'll go through our grid with a bit of a red pen. We've lost our 2nd and 3rd place starters, and Ted Björk 7th on the grid. Big question mark over the Volvo. We can't see any sign of that. Who else did we lose? John Philippi, Ferenc Fitzger. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. Of course, Thiago Monteiro will not take up his 10th place grid spot.
Very good chance for Tom Chilton to score some very big points this afternoon.
Yeah.
Been very quick, did an excellent job in the race of attrition in race 1, finished 2nd. And yeah, he's definitely looking like a very strong podium contender for race 2.
Well, he will line up right behind Jose Maria Lopez on the driver's left of the grid, which means if he follows Lopez, then he should end up 2nd as they get out of the first chicane, with hanging out Norbert Michelis and Nicky Katzberg to dry on the outside. The big problem for him, possibly, will be Rob Huff, because if there is no Ted Björk, then Huff will line up behind Chilton. Huff might actually end up 3rd out of the first corner. He'll have to elbow Norby aside, but we'll have to wait and see how that little dynamic works out. Of course, with only 2 Hondas, Honda will be really keen for both drivers to make it onto the Nordschleife and to the end of the race.
Yeah, and I think with Lopez, we're kind of all expecting him to romp off to victory, but there might be a chance with him being conservative with this tyre issue we've got going on.
Well, let's hear what Huffy's thoughts are. Alex Le Guy is down with the Honda driver.
Quick word with Thiago's teammate. Rob, that was an absolutely fantastic race. But first of all, let's just chat about Thiago. What are your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I hope Thiago's okay. We've not really had a report back yet, but obviously, yeah, I hope it's okay. I had a big crash myself on Thursday, and it definitely knocks it out of you, but, you know, the Honda's a very, very strong car, and I have to say, you know, this is the same car that I had a crash flat in 6th gear, and nothing, literally nothing structural bent or anything. So the cars are safe. It's more the shock, and of course, the older and more experienced you get, the more it hurts. But ultimately, either way, it's not good. We seem to have a lot of punctures, and really, I think it's not necessarily the tyre itself. It's a difference in the tyres from one set to another, and it's up to us. You know, at the end of the day, Honda have just said to us, if you want to race, race. If you don't want to race, we support you. So I'm a racer. I'm going for it.
Okay, well, hopefully this race will be as good. Thanks.
Thiago Montero's car on the flatbed, heading back towards the pits, and at the moment this is in the twisty section, Wippermann, Brunchen and all of that. So may well be that they're going to go to one of the exits and then go onto the main road and head around that way, because delivering the car is going to leave the rescue vehicles out of position. That's actually something we're going to have to think about, whether we get the race underway at its scheduled start time, our main race, because those flatbeds will need to be replaced, substituted or back in position. Race due to start in just over 35 minutes. Is that right? 12:45. Yes, it's just 12:10 now.
It's very good of the Honda team to offer their drivers the sort of chance to stand down, but in reality, no racing driver is ever going to do that, and that's where it comes down to the regulatory body and the tyre manufacturer to make some of these decisions, because there's no way that the drivers are not going to race. And like Gabriele said, it's just ludicrous to say to a racing driver to not drive so fast.
Yeah, take it easy. Yes, definitely. Pad change for Nicky Katzberg. Looks like the same discs are staying on. So he will have blued those pads and discs at some stage. I mean, the discs obviously have had a lot of work in the first race, but he will have bedded in the pads. And Gabriele Tarquini, Nicky Katzberg and Ugo Valente will be a little trepidatious perhaps heading into the main race. What about Ted Bjerk in the Volvo? Looks like he's ready.
Quick word with you, Ted. When you came in earlier, your car was on fire. What happened?
No, something with the oil, something with the pressure. So I had to abort the second place. You know, it was crazy. I felt so good, but now the mechanics has done an amazing job to get me here again, and I'm just keep fighting in the next race because the car feels great.
Good. That's a very, very good reaction there, because we were watching you and you were fighting. You looked really, really strong, and it looked like you were going to keep the pace.
Yeah, it felt really good, and I was trying to get Montero, and then I just had to see my alarms and come in. So, but the guys are working so hard, and I'm happy to be here again.
Good. Well done, Ted.
Well, Ted will start in 5th position, and Fredrik Ekblom will start in 8th position. So both Volvos on the grid and in with a position, a chance of some good points from those spots. 2 drivers in front of Ted won't make the restart, and all 3 of our accident victims in the opening race were due to be ahead of Fredrik Ekblom's 11th position on the grid, so he will be moved up to 8th. At least I assume he will. I assume there won't be just gaping holes on the grid, and that will leave Jose Maria Lopez an entire row of clear space between him and his closest rival. Well, his closest rival would be Norbert Michelis, just double checking the alignment on the car, making sure the wheels are pointing in the right direction, which sounds like a silly thing to say, but yeah, everything is so finely tuned on these cars that 45 minutes of bumping and bouncing from curb to crest to dip to rise is just likely to move things around a little.
Yeah, actually the teams take 2 readings. They set up the car on the flat patch, but then also they then put the car into the air jacks like it is now. The wheels obviously move in the droop movement, but then they take another measurement, and they know that the correlation between the 2 is the same. Yeah. So that's how they can make these quick checks in the pit lane like that.
So Norby fires up, he is ready to go. Mehdi Benani already heading down pit road. And Norby now can either head out to the grid or go round and come back down through pit lane again. Alex Legui down in the pit road, catching up with Sabine Schmitz.
Queen of the Ring got herself another championship point. Well done. We've got a bit of a mixed reaction from the drivers after that race. But from where I was sitting, it looked like yours was pretty positive.
Yeah, that's great to have a point. I got stuck behind Katzberg and Demoustier when Katzberg overtook him, so I had the chance to overtook him, but then there was a very long gap, so I just drive safely home, so not very exciting.
And thoughts then, strategy for this race?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Strategy for the main race?
Yay, there are less cars now, maybe more points.
That's a good strategy, well done.
Well, Sabina again, 3 cars in front of her won't make the start at least, so she goes from 14th to 11th automatically on the grid. Dario Desposito, who's the team manager at Castrol Honda Racing, and Alessandro Mariani, the boss of Yasport. You know, okay, so let's play devil's advocate. What can you do as a team? Can you just change the camera on the cars now, just back everything off, make it more conservative to try and preserve the tyre and hope that that makes a difference?
Generally, you know, I'm not on the front line, but from what we know of Yokohama tyre construction, it's generally a combination of pressure and camber, and probably more a weight on the pressure. Teams start with quite low pressures because that's what they need to have the best average pressure during the race and therefore the most performance. But it means that in the beginning part of the race, the side wall of the tyre oscillates, goes up and down, pinches, if you like, and that's what stresses the tyre cords and then causes a failure in a normal race 7 or 8 laps later. Obviously it's the same distance here because we're only on 3 laps, but the laps are much longer. So in overinflating the tyre and taking some camber out, which is the angle at which the tyre leans into the car, you can reduce that, but in doing that you lose a lot of performance. So again, until somebody from a regulatory point of view mandates that, it's very, very difficult because the teams aren't going to give away performance. Obviously they will want to make the end of the race, but they know that they can't give up too much performance. And this is like I said before, the analogy of, you know, when a rugby player has concussion, it needs to be a doctor that says you can't play, because the rugby player will always want to go back on the field. You know, same with boxing, whatever else. And you have to say, you know, we've probably had upwards of sort of 8, 9, 10 tyre failures this weekend. And on a circuit like this, it's somewhere you can really hurt yourself, or somebody else, a marshal or a member in the crowd, and you know, we'd all look very silly come Monday morning if anything bad happened when we've had all this opportunity to try and put something right.
Well, barrier repairs continue. We've got about 30 minutes before our main race gets underway, so we shouldn't have too much of a delay.
The safety teams here do an excellent job at maintaining all the safety devices around the circuit, the barriers, everything else. Everything happens in double quick time here, and considering this circuit is some 25 kilometres long, it's a phenomenal job that the organising body do to make everything work.
Yeah, when we drive in, we come up from Adenau and come round the Grand Prix loop and along the back of the main grandstands. There's this vast, almost like building site, but it's just full of stacks of barriers and posts, and you know, and that's just for the safety facilities on the track, because of course we talked about this earlier in the weekend. This is not just it gets used occasionally as a racetrack like the Grand Prix circuit here does. The Nordschleife itself is open pretty much 24/7, 365. Even when it's covered in snow, people go out and drive on it. And it's used as an industry test facility, and so when we leave, when the 24-hour race is finished, on Monday morning, people will have the track booked, and they will have paid money up front to go out and be developing their road cars, their high-performance road cars.
Just told me that the grid has changed. Now we close the gap on the grid, so Michele is pissed. Sorry for that. I'm really pissed off.
Well, you shouldn't be, because those are the regulations. So...
I missed that, Martin. What did he say?
The engineer was really annoyed because they were closing up the gaps on the grid to replace the missing cars instead of leaving 2 empty spaces alongside and behind Pachito. So now Norby will start on row 2.
Yeah, there is a reg somewhere that if the races are close enough together, then they can't issue another grid sheet for race 2. But whether that quite falls foul of that regulation, I'm not sure.
Well, clearly not, because they have issued a new grid sheet. So it only makes sense, you know, if cars are plainly not going to be on the grid, close the grid up. You don't want one car and then 5 gaps before the next car. That's just you know, plainly ridiculous. Sheltering from the sun under an umbrella, a sight rarely seen at the Nordschleife. Jose Maria Lopez, our race 1 winner, will start our main race here at the Nordschleife on pole position. So he already has his first opening race win of the season here at the Nürburgring, and he is now looking to double up and make it a double race winning weekend. See the fly-by-wire camera zooming over the top, all part of the, 46 odd cameras they've got here around the Nürburgring, and that gives us this great tracking shots. For the 24-hour race, there'll be 3 separate grids of cars to start 175 cars into the 24-hour race.
Just to confirm, Thiago is okay, a small problem with the breath, but he's okay.
Sounds like he was probably winded.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it looked like. It took him a while to get out of the car, and that then you understand, okay, he's winded, and, you know, you get the belts are so tight, even so, you get this massive shot going through the body, and it's like a punch in the solar plexus, and you're just breathless. And we saw him sort of struggle over the barriers and then still really struggling to get his breath, and that's just the severity of the impact. The HANS device and everything will have really helped, so there shouldn't be any major trauma in any kind. It was a very fast, like Rob's accident, flat in top, really high-speed 6-gear accident, but the car takes a huge amount of the stress away from the driver, and so although he's been whisked off to the medical crews here at the in the paddock, we saw the ambulance going past with him in, at least we assumed it was him in because the lights were still on. I'm sure that he'll be passed fully fit, and we may well see him in the garage before the end of the race, because breathless though he was initially, I think he should be fairly much okay. Barrier repairs continuing, and I think that is the really high-speed section from Bergwerk through Kesselchen. Gabriele Tarquini still animated discussion with former boss Alessandro Mariani. Gabriele, of course, raced with him last year.
Father of the grid, isn't he? Sort of the oldest driver, most experienced, probably heading towards the most race starts, if he's not the guy that's got the most race starts. So, yeah, he's the oldest, wisest head, and he'll be having some conversations because he doesn't feel like what's going on is correct.
Not sure if Sabina's having a shower or what there in the car. Very unusual, though, for it to be quite so hot and sunny. However, there are a lot of white clouds building from the west, which is where the predominant weather will be coming from. And that happened yesterday. Of course, that's all the water that has fallen in the preceding 12 hours, then being evaporated by the sun, gets up into the cooler air, forms clouds, and then the weather moves in, and the fronts that came yesterday brought thunderstorm of biblical proportions, with thunder, lightning, rain, flooding, hail. And although the World Touring Car Championship may well avoid that, the 24-hour race is probably going to run right into the teeth of the weather.